Welcome back, everyone, to the Temple of Technology. I am your host, Scott James Magner, the idiot with a microphone. And tonight, it's another episode of the Arts Entertainment webcast, So Here's the Deal, where I explore my media library with special friends and guests, talk about things that are important to me, and why they matter. We're continuing our David Lynch Film Fest today by covering Season 1 of Twin Peaks, Episodes 4 and 5, Rest in Pain and the One-Armed Man. Let's get to it. And with me here in the collaboration room is Julie McGill. Julie, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Why are we here again? I forget.
We are here to discuss Twin Peaks.
Oh, that's right. It's right here in front of me. I should have known that. I'm an idiot with a microphone after all. So I watched these episodes earlier in the week. I believe Julie watched them again last night. Is that correct?
I did. Mm-hmm.
All right. And we are, because this is a webcast about my personal media collection, I'll remind everyone who is new to the webcast that we are walking through Twin Peaks Season 1 as presented on the Twin Peaks A to Z Blu-ray set, also known as Twin Peaks The Complete Mystery. All right, we're here to talk about episodes 4 and 5, titled Rest in Pain and the One-Armed Man. Those titles, believe it or not, were invented for the German television release of Twin Peaks. Originally, they were simply called Episodes 3 and Episode 4 for the release of Season 1 of Twin Peaks. And the pilot of Northwest Passage was its own special release and wasn't included in the episode numbering. That's why Julie and I sometimes say, depending on how you count, we're on episode X or Y. But how I'm counting and how the Twin Peaks wiki counts, these are episodes 4 and 5, and they use the German titles because they like to do that sort of thing. And to help us introduce episodes 4 and 5, we're going to have a chat with our friend, the Log Lady. It's going to tell us what we need to know about Episode 4, Rest in Pain.
Even the ones who laugh are sometimes caught without an answer. These creatures who introduce themselves, but we swear we have met them somewhere before. Yes? Look in the mirror. What do you see? Is it a dream or a nightmare? Are we being introduced against our will? Are they mirrors? I can see the smoke. I can smell the fire. The battle is drawing nigh.
Wow. Very apocalyptic.
She's got Log Lady has issues. It's okay because her log is a message for us. So I hear.
Yes. I notice, Fire Walk with Me is a theme throughout Twin Peaks, but the Log Lady seems unusually obsessed with like the coming fire. And I'm not
Well,
sure what that says.
as I recall, didn't her husband die in a fire?
Uh, you know, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's a thing for her. All right. You watched this live back in 1990.
I did.
What do you remember from then about how it hit? Remember, this is the first episode. I know you cover this in your notes, but this is something I've been waiting to talk about for a week or two. This is the first episode not written by David Lynch and not directed by David Lynch. This was written by This is written by Harley Payton and directed by Tina Rathborn. And it's kind of a big deal. You know, this is where the series actually really kicks into gear, because it's no longer simply the fevered imaginings of a demented genius, our friend Dave. But it's a true thing. It's a true media experience.
Yeah, I remember we were just all hooked at this point. It had become a, weekly get together with your friends, watch Twin Peaks ritual. And what I remember that I find kind of interesting is I don't remember immediately noticing a change in tone or a drop off in quality when we were watching it new. But when I was rewatching it, it stood out to me as very different than the ones that have gone before. So I think that's kind of interesting. When they were
slapped
new,
me in the fucking face. It really
when they were
did.
new, I didn't notice at all, really.
Yeah, it's like knowing how the sausage is made and how sausage tastes afterwards. Because I can't not think about it, right? When I saw character motivation shift, when I saw characterization shift in that first bit of this episode, an episode I've seen many, many, many times. Knowing how everything works now, it just really jumped up and hit me in the face. All right, I'm going to read the episode summary, and then we'll have a little more to talk about. So this is the episode summary as presented on Wikipedia for Rest in Pain. To impress Cooper, on whom she has a crush, gotta appreciate their grammar, with her investigative skills, but not their comma use, Audrey reveals One-Eyed Jacks may hold a clue that Laura and Ronette both worked at the perfume counter at Ben's department store. Truman and Police Secretary Lucy Moran meet Cooper for breakfast, where Cooper insists his dream holds the key to solving the murder, but admits he cannot remember what Laura told him. Albert raises the ire of Truman and Donna's father, Dr. Will Hayward, by refusing to allow Laura's body to be released for her funeral, leading Cooper to step in on their behalf. Laura's cousin, Maddie Ferguson, appears in Twin Peaks for the funeral, finding Leland in an increasingly unstable state. Cooper questions Leo, who has an alibi for the night of Laura's murder. At the funeral, Bobby angrily blames the townspeople for not, I hate him so much, for not helping Laura when they all knew she was in trouble, and threatens to kill James. Fuck you, Bobby. Truman introduces Cooper to the Bookhouse Boys. Yay! A secret society investigating the passage of cocaine into Twin Peaks, who have identified Roadhouse bartender Jacques Renault as a supplier. Oh, yeah. Jacques. Jacoby admits to Cooper that Laura was the only one of his patients that he cared for. That is a concise-ish summary that misses out on almost everything that makes this episode special. This episode had a 16.7 share, which is up from episode... No, actually, we're still going down. 16.7. That's not great. Part of it, I think, is baseball season had just started. It was April 26, 1990. It was the day before my birthday. Which means I know exactly what I was doing there the night this aired. And, yeah. That was a thing. Though I believe there's another episode we need to talk about. The Log Lady will tell us what we need to know for that one, too. Take us away, Log Lady.
I play my part on life's stage. I tell what I can to form the perfect answer. But that answer cannot come before all are ready to hear. So I tell what I can to form the perfect answer. Sometimes my anger at the fire is evident. Sometimes it is not anger, really. It may appear as such, but could it be a clue? The fire I speak of is not a kind fire.
I don't know what she's talking about, but it seems gloomy.
More fire.
More fire.
Lots more fire.
Yes, this was May 3rd, 1990. The ratings were up from the previous week. We're at a 17.4 share, which is still nice. Remember, 1 point of Nielsen rating is 953,000 households watching the show. So a significant number of people still tuning in every week. This episode was written by Kim Hunter and directed by Robert Engels. And I believe you have a summary for it.
All right. Episode 4, The One-Armed Man. Cooper realizes that Sarah's vision of the gray-haired man was Bob from his dream. Jacoby admits Laura's problems were of a sexual nature, and that she mentioned a man who drives a red sports car, which Truman realizes belongs to Leo. Laura's corpse has extensive bird bites and a poker chip in her stomach bearing the letter J, which Cooper connects to One-Eyed Jacks. Hawk tracks down the one-armed man from Cooper's dream, a shoe salesman named Philip Michael Gerard, who seems to know nothing about the dream spirits. However, he does have a friend named Bob, a veterinarian, which Cooper connects to Laura's bird bites. Josie discovers that Ben is plotting with Catherine. The veterinarian's office contains the same twine used to bind Laura's wrists. Shelley gives Leo's blood-stained shirt to Bobby, which he takes to Jacques' apartment to frame Leo for Laura's murder. Going through the veterinarian's files, Andy finds a bird that matches the description of Laura's bites belonging to Jacques. Ben meets with Leo, arranging to have the sawmill burned. James and Donna, having heard of Sarah's nightmare, discover Laura's locket has been stolen. Meanwhile, Josie is having an affair with Hank Jennings, Norma's husband.
Yeah. There's a lot of facts, not in evidence, presented by that summary. What we know is that Josie has some sort of relationship with Hank Jennings, not an affair.
I also I really question the finds a bird that matches the description of Laura's bites belonging to that is just not a
the
good
transitive
sentence.
property is not an effect there. No. They found a bird that could have caused Laura's bites. Or Andy finds a bird belonging to finds that Jacques owns a bird. You know, there's so many different ways to parse that sentence, most of which are correct. And this Wikipedia summary, which is why, by the way, as a reminder, why we read the Wikipedia summaries, because they're frequently almost right. You can get a far better summary of these episodes from the Twin Peaks Wiki, which I absolutely recommend that everyone read. It has so much stuff on that wiki. It's amazing. This is just the normal Wikipedia Commons, and I typically use Wikipedia to track down writers and directors for episodes to make sure that when I am archiving them that I am looking at the correct episode. But in general, it's the step cousin of Google AI summaries. Only Wikipedia was actually crowdsourced by humans rather than an algorithm. With that in mind, I think that we have some impressions to get to about these episodes that are our impressions created by us, actual humans. So let's move on to our next section, First Impressions. All right,
Okay,
first impressions of Rest in Pain. Boy, I have a lot to say about this episode, and I think you do too.
I do.
Yeah.
Most of it about Leland Palmer.
Leland Palmer. Yeah, this is not Leland's finest moment, this episode.
Oh,
I This is one of those weird bits, right? Where his life is coming unglued, and we know why. But it's when Maddie pops up, right? Maddie pops up at the beginning of this episode, who looks just like Laura Palmer and is her cousin. Maddie, according to the source I actually trust, the Twin Peaks wiki, is several years older than Laura, but looks exactly like her, which kind of means that she is related to Sarah and not Leland. That's what I think. And he is just kind of foolish eye candy. Now, uh, Cheryl Lee coming back as Maddie is because she tested so well in the pilot, and they really, really appreciated, A, that she was willing to get naked, and B, the way she handled the material and her chemistry with the rest of the cast. So she stayed in Seattle when the production moved south, and they called her up and she said, well, my character's dead. I don't have anything else to do. And they said, no, we have a part for you. And, it's kind of a small part, but she's in all of season 1 and most of season 2. So she's a revelation. And she counts as our first returning character, because she isn't actually in the last 2 episodes we covered, but she was in Northwest Passage, which we covered as a separate entity. So it's kind of fun to have a returning character cast member show up. But yeah, Leland Palmer, give us your best shot, because I have a few
well,
things to say about some other characters.
well, what I was going to say is that for a long time, again, these are based on having watched it in real time. The thing that jumped out at everyone of this episode is the incident at Laura's funeral, where if just in case you haven't seen it, it is one of the most horrific, absurd, and hilarious things I've still ever seen in a TV show. Um, so what Leland does is he dives onto Laura's coffin, which is about to be lowered into the grave. Um, he clings to it face down, which the force of his jump has done something to the motor on the casket lowering device, and that's what they call these, casket lowering device. I went to see if it had a special name, but casket lowering device is the name for that mechanism. So when he jumps on it, he does something to the motor. The device makes a sound like a scream, and then it starts to malfunction, where it just starts moving up and down while Leland clings face down to the coffin, weeping. Laura's mother gets mad at him and says the words, "Don't ruin this too," which I find very, very, there's a lot of implication there. And honestly, when we watched it real time, there was a big in-room discussion about whether that moment means that Leland Palmer was sexually abusing Laura. The consensus was that he probably was, and that's because the moment with the coffin, it's so suggestive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a little bit extra closure on this. The final scene of this episode, Cooper and Hawk are talking about dream souls who wander. And then we see Leland wandering through dancers at the Great Northern, and then he starts saying, "Dance with me, somebody dance with me." And the actor gets this hollow, strange, otherworldly tone in his voice that I can't imitate it. I
Yeah.
tried, obviously, just there. And it just, he sounds so strange. And it's like, oh my God, this man is so guilty. Um, but at this stage, I think we were all pretty sure that he was guilty of sexually abusing his daughter, but we didn't know what else he might be guilty of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's knowing what I know, right? And watching Ray Wise do this. Ray Wise is such a good actor. Such a good actor. To throw this performance together. And I mean, this is not a performance that David Lynch would have elicited. He would have had things go a different way. And so this is, for me, where the characterizations really wildly diverge with the new director. And the writing, not so much, because the direction is how to get the actors to where they should be for the story that's being told. And I don't think David Lynch would have directed that scene that way. I certainly don't think we would have got that "Don't ruin this too, Leland." Or "Oh, Leland, don't ruin this too" line. Sarah. Don't think Bobby would have started punching people at the funeral. This is just, it's so weird to watch this divergence here, right? But Twin Peaks is a strange place. Strange shit happens. And when I remember watching this for the first time in 98, 99, when I got my DVDs, and I was laughing my ass off at that entire thing. Laughing and laughing and laughing. And now I cringe. I cringe really bad because of what happens next. And it cuts away from the funeral to Shelley laughing her ass off at the diner and mocking Leland in a Trumpian way to a bunch of old guys who weren't at the funeral. And the thing is, Shelley wasn't at the funeral. And so she's telling a story secondhand about something that happened and just going crazy, mocking people. It's like, wow, you're awful. You're a horrible person. And we already knew she wasn't great, but I didn't think she was bad. And Shelley's bad in that scene. She's not a good person. And that was just kind of weird. Albert Rosenfeld, I think, is still Albert. In fact, Miguel Ferrer was this episode wasn't well reviewed by critics, but everybody liked Miguel Ferrer as Albert. They thought he was abrupt and honest and going off on things, and I'm not surprised that, spoilers, Sheriff Truman punches Albert right in the fucking face. Drops him like a sack of taters. And down he goes, and Albert comes back and says, "I'm gonna die," and he tries to get Dale Cooper to witness an assault statement. Cooper tells him to go pound rocks. And, we have David Lynch appears in the episode on the telephone. Not in real life, but on the telephone. So we got to hear the voice. "Dale, I have some things to say. Part of it's about your new friend, Terry Truman." And it's just, wow, he's such a prick. I remember saying at the time, "Oh, I like that Albert guy. Yeah, he's doing something." But I had already seen him. I had already seen Miguel Ferrer in the show Crossing Jordan. And so I was familiar with his work and other things. And seeing him here in a very early role was kind of interesting. So it should be noted that Miguel Ferrer's mother is Rosemary Clooney.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Miguel Ferrer's mother is Rosemary Clooney. He is George Clooney's cousin. And his father is Jose Ferrer, who was, he's known to a lot of people as an actor and a director. So him coming into the cast here as such an important pivotal role as Albert, who is exceptionally good at his job, right? Except for the part where he goes, I have tests to do that I can only perform right now. And then he pulls out a fucking power drill. And he's driving into Laura's head while people are watching, going, what fucking test are you doing that you need a power drill to drill into an 18-year-old girl's head? Wow. So I don't know what's going on with Albert. I don't know what his deal is, except that he has a lot of forensic knowledge he's able to get by running these tests immediately through there. But Dr. Hayward is very clear that Laura's body needs to be released for the burial because the Palmers are Jewish. And they don't bring it up. They don't bring it up at all. That this is a religious reason why Laura needs to be buried as fast as possible. She's just saying that we're having a funeral and you got to give us the body back. And he's saying, I don't give a shit. I'm running tests. I'm a scientist. And I don't think that's a David Lynch treatment of that character either. A character that he originated and that he proposed and he planned for to be in the series. I just don't think that he would have done it that way or written in that way. So another weird bit about how this episode goes. And I don't know, the bird thing, the Andy thing. One of my big first impressions this time out is how cold Lucy is to Andy, and we have no idea why. It's really interesting. And I think, is it this one or the next one? Oh, yeah, it's the next one. It's the next one where Andy's really in the doghouse. And I don't know. It's just kind of odd. So, is there anything more we want to talk about?
Well, no, it's
List
interesting
and
you
Fame?
say that it's interesting that you say the Palmers are Jewish, because I'm pretty sure that's a Christian burial ceremony.
I think it is. She said they went to Sunday school, right? But I think that Sarah is Jewish, and by that, her daughter is Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
All the way in there. So
yeah, actually that could be, I wonder if because obviously there's tension between Sarah and Leland, so I wonder if that's part of the tension. If Sarah is like, according to the customs of my people, we must bury her in 3 days, and Leland's like,
yeah, well,
we're
Leland's still not sure she's dead,
what?
except for the part that she's not showing up for breakfast. Leland's kind of not there.
And Leland's kind of not there. Exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Bookhouse boys real fast. Because in our last episode, going based solely on what we'd seen in the series before, I said I wanted to know more about the Bookhouse boys. Boom! Sheriff Truman and Hawk and Ed are right there saying, all right, we're the Bookhouse boys, and this is what we do. It's like, okay. Yeah, this is awesome. And then we see James and his biker friend about to torture a Canadian, which is totally something David Lynch would have done. It's like, fuck yeah, we're having this scene. Because I saw Blue Velvet. That was the most David Lynch thing in the entire episode. It's the Bookhouse boys having tied up a bartender and saying, you're going to talk to us. And he says, no, I'm not saying nothing. It's like, yeah. But that Bookhouse was kind of interesting because it had been there for a long time. And one of the things that Harry says is, about 20 years. But it really goes back much farther than that, because their parents, their fathers were all Bookhouse boys, and their fathers before them were all Bookhouse boys. It goes back to the 1940s. That's how everything went. And they talk about, it's like, yeah, we know that cocaine's coming in, and we pretty much know who it does, but we need confessions, and we need to do this the right way, and we need to get things all the way in. And Dr. Jacoby is kind of, I got way big creeper vibes the very first time I saw Dr. Jacoby. I got more of him this time. That guy is just a loon. He's out there. But Dr. Jacoby is an interesting character because he is talked about in the show Fringe many years later.
The character of Walter,
the mad scientist in Fringe, talks about my old colleague, Dr. Jacoby.
Okay.
Wow. Wow, that's okay. So kind of all tied together in all that. And in Fringe, they talk about the old X series, meaning the X-Files. And so the television show Fringe exists in the same continuum as the X-Files. Dr. Jacoby exists in the same continuum as Fringe. There's an ABC relationship where some part of the FBI that may or may not be the part that Gordon Cole is a part of runs the X-Files. Right? And that the X-Files exist in the universe of Twin Peaks, but Dale Cooper is not investigating an X-File. He's investigating a serial killer. Just happens to be that he was sent on this particular mission to this particular town. So there's a lot going on. And I had seen the X-Files before I'd seen Twin Peaks. You know, so coming back into things with reverse eyes was kind of interesting. I'd also seen a lot of these actors in other things before I'd seen them in Twin Peaks. Yeah. All right. What about the one-armed man?
What about the one-armed man? I have to say that this particular episode strikes me as even more of that different, feeling very different from the first couple of episodes, where it's really starting to feel more like a regular, nightly soap opera, of a kind that was very popular in those days. And it's still got that quirkiness, but it feels more like the quirkiness is kind of lurking around the edges as opposed to being full on Lynch World quirkiness.
Yeah.
And so the one-armed man, so there's things like, okay, they go to see the veterinarian to see if they can find out about the bird, bird bites. There's a llama in the waiting room. That is a nice little weird touch, but I feel like as the series went on, especially the episodes that were not done by David Lynch or Mark Frost, you get more of that where it's kind of like a police procedural with lots of soap opera elements, and then it's got these weird little things in the background, like a llama in the waiting room. I do think it's interesting that we meet the one-armed man, because at that time, watching it in real time, we could easily see that it was the same man from Cooper's Dream, but the man they meet doesn't seem like the same man. He doesn't act like the same man. He doesn't seem to know any of the weird things going on. When they ask him if he had a tattoo on his missing arm, what did it say? He starts weeping and said, "It's a mom," and he seems sincere. Like, they open his case and it's full of shoes, which is a little odd, but there's just no sense at all that he's connected to Killer Bob in any way. And so I remember that seeming kind of intriguing, because it's obviously the same man from Cooper's Dream, but he doesn't seem to have anything to do with any of this. So it does have, this particular episode does have some of the well, when you're female and you're watching shows, especially older shows, you'll be going along, watching the show, enjoying the characters, enjoying the story, enjoying the dialogue, and then all of a sudden somebody will say, "Women, they're like this." And I
couldn't believe that line when I heard it this time through. I glossed right over it before because I was an angry young man, and as mentioned previously, drunk when I was watching this show. But I can't fucking believe those four guys were saying that kind of shit. That was unbelievable. It's like,
they're otherwise assholes.
Yeah. It's like, you guys are all awful. right? And then once Andy's out of the room, you know, Truman and Hawk become adults, actual adults, while Andy's out of the room. And they're talking to Cooper about his love and his loss. He says, "Oh, I knew someone once, and it didn't end well." That's part of Cooper's tragic backstory, which we're going to save for a while because it is an amazing tragic backstory. The stuff's going on, but he literally loved and lost, and all these things are going on. And then out of the blue, out of nowhere, Detective Hawk, or I call him Detective Hawk, it's Deputy Hawk, or just Hawk, just drops weird poetry on that and says, "Oh yeah, it was who is that? Who said that?" It's like, "My girlfriend, PhD at Brandeis." And so, talk about a rich emotional life. What the fuck is that guy doing in Twin Peaks? He's a Bookhouse boy, obviously. He's the sworn protector of the town. But he's got this giant life outside of this town. And other than Dale Cooper, he appears to be the only one that does. You know, he's a well-educated person. He has a lot of important skills. But they took one really important skill away from Hawk in this episode. They put the fucking drawing pad in Andy's hands.
That's right. In the they imply it's Hawk who's the artist.
Well, in the international version of the pilot, the 30 minutes that U.S. people didn't say, when Leland calls Lucy at home, and she goes, "Deputy Hawk is our police sketch artist. I'll send him right over." But that part of the pilot is one of 2 or 3 things that doesn't show up in episodes 2 and 3, where we get the rest of that footage and Sarah's dream and Cooper's dream, right? And so Hawk, being a sketch artist, isn't any part of that. And so they put the paper and pen in Andy's hands, and now Andy has an important skill that used to belong to Hawk. But Hawk has a new skill because he's an excellent tracker. Like every other fucking Native American depicted poorly on television. Now, Michael Horse, obviously Native American, very proud of his heritage, very proud of his performance all the way through here. But, you know, it's got a stick in his fucking craw that he had an amazingly cool part when David Lynch was writing. And now he's the Indian in the corner. Man, that would piss me off.
At least he has a girlfriend with a PhD.
He's got a girlfriend with a PhD, right? So his in one aspect, his situation is really improved. In another one, but hey, he managed to track down the one-armed man. He tracks down all sorts of people. All right. So I'm going to go into this a little later, but I want to talk about the horrible shit show that is Shelley, Leo, and Bobby. Because in addition to numerous misdemeanors and outright felonies that Bobby has committed so far, he is now conspiring to frame someone for murder. And that's going to get that person killed. And he plants the evidence in the apartment of somebody else they're trying to frame for murder and drug use and all this kind of crazy stuff. One room away from where Benjamin Horne and Catherine Martell are having sex. And Josie Packard is out in the car watching all this happen. What is going on at that motel? All these crazy things are converging. But Bobby is the most important part of all this because I lost every shred of respect for that character. And I'm going to do a profile of Bobby later on in our expanded coverage. But wow! The piece of shit levels are now truckloads of shit. Shelley is a horrible human being laughing at a breathing father. She tries to do the right thing. She says, I got this shirt. It's covered in blood. I think it's Laura's blood. And Bobby says, I'll take care of it. Instead of going to the fucking police and giving them the shirt and saying, Shelley found this, you can't tell them it was Shelley. Right? He's going and going to plant Leo's shirt, stained with Laura's blood, on Jacques Renault, of all people. Right? I mean, there's easier ways to stop dealing cocaine, Bobby. One of which is stop dealing cocaine.
They
It
do.
doesn't involve.
They owe,
Go ahead.
oh, don't they owe a lot of money to Leo though?
They owe $5,000 to Leo. They gave
Yeah.
half the money up front. Have we? Yes, we had. So the stag head on the table. That was in the pilot, right? Or was that in
I
episode
think
two?
so. Oh no, yeah, it was episode 2
Okay,
or
so
3.
we've done Laura's safety deposit box, and we found the 10 grand. We know where Bobby's money is, or rather, where Leo's money is. It's in police lockup, right? And Bobby's not getting that money back, and so over $5,000, he's willing to essentially murder 2 people. And I'm supposed to like this guy. I'm also supposed to believe he's a true friend to Shelley, and he genuinely cares about Laura's death, because he doesn't seem to genuinely care about Laura's death. He cares about being inconvenienced by Laura's death because he was arrested by the police. Or trying to
Are we
kill.
supposed to like him?
Yeah, we are.
Really?
He's a bright-faced kid. He's popular.
Hmm.
He's one of the first people we actually meet in Twin Peaks, right? You put them in front of the episode when they're important. So
Yeah, but he's always trying to, beat up James, and I think
always
we
trying to
are
beat up
supposed to
James,
like
yeah.
James.
yeah, we are definitely
So,
supposed to like James.
and he flips shit to Cooper, and we're definitely supposed to like Cooper. So I don't know. I don't actually think we're supposed to like Bond.
Yeah. Well,
I think we're supposed to have a little bit of sympathy for him, but not that much.
I'm done with that too. No more sympathy for Bobby. Justice for Hawk. No sympathy for Bobby.
All right.
Yeah. So. Oh yeah, and then important thing, it was brought up in the summary there, but Hank Jennings, Leo, Benjamin Horne, all these people, very, very, very bad people. And they all have a connection to Josie Packard, as does Sheriff Truman, who is one of the generally nice, good people that we've met so far. And it boggles the mind how much shit goes down in this town when nobody's looking. Tim Hunter, who directed this episode, used a lot of weird angles that David Lynch specifically didn't want to use, like big Dutch angles shooting up at people. And that was another big departure in both procedure and the look of the show. And that it's filmed in a way that David Lynch wouldn't film things. I don't think it's a bad way to film things. In fact, I think it was really effective how the episode was lit and shot and moved all the way through. But in just 2 episodes, almost everyone we met, except for Dale Cooper and Harry Truman, who really just wants to punch people all the time. I can see that rage just simmering beneath his eyes. They're all different. They're all different people. And it's just kind of weird. And we'll cover that some more in our expanded coverage. Do you have any more impressions of these 2 episodes before we move on?
Just one final one, and you brought it up by bringing up the different camera angles. I noticed that these 2 episodes, much less, they don't have that David Lynch 1950s by way of the 1980s vibe, nearly to the extent. Like, the makeup, hair, general look and feel, is basically 1990 at this point. It's not that kind of strange, timeless place anymore.
That, yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it would have been probably hard to keep that up for the entire thing. But when I really notice it is in Rest in Pain, like we open on Audrey. She's clearly, on the make for Agent Cooper, and she's wearing this kind of the shoulder red ruffled top. And what I noticed is, like, okay, they are trying to make her look more age appropriate for Cooper
I'm
throughout
just
that
sexy
episode.
for grown-ups.
But also she in the pilot, she looks, her outfits and her hair and her makeup, she could be a teenager from the 1950s. No longer the case
Yeah.
in and so that was something that I didn't really notice go away in real, like I didn't consciously notice it going away in real time, but definitely on a rewatch, that's an obvious change over the course of the series.
Keyboard stuff. Hope it's just out of juice. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And not bad, just different. Okay, let's move on to our expanded coverage, and we'll go into a bit more of these and our Lynchian and lack of Lynchian tropes. And we're back for our expanded coverage of Twin Peaks episodes 4 and 5, Rest in Pain and The One-Armed Man. I won the coin toss earlier, and so I'm going to go first. And I have some thoughts about Bobby Briggs. Now, you may have seen me going thumbs down and booing Bobby Briggs earlier tonight because I just don't like it. I think he's a waste. He's not great. And I know a lot about Bobby Briggs. I've seen all of Twin Peaks. But I'm going to restrict my comments here to stuff that was available at the time that we have here. So through the first 5 episodes of Twin Peaks, the books, which are The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, Secret History of Twin Peaks, and Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier, and the tiny bit of information that we have from Fire Walk with Me. So that's basically the timeline-specific stuff that I'll cover here. Now, light spoilers are possible, right? We can do some light spoilers here, and I won't talk about a lot of stuff that happens to Bobby later on in season 2 and in the revival. But I'll talk about where Bobby is, what's going on with him, why he kind of is the way he is, and I'll start by talking about the actor who portrays Bobby, Dana Ashbrook. I have to say this out loud so that it's no longer in my brain. I can't say Dana Ashbrook without singing science fiction double feature in my head. The song from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which has a line said, Dana Andrews had prunes, gave him the runes, and passing used lots of skills. I swear to you, every single time I see the name Dana Ashbrook, he said prunes gave him the runes, and they are not the same person. They're nowhere close to being the same person. Dana Ashbrook is a very accomplished actor, although he's been acting a very long time. He comes from, by the time of Twin Peaks, he in fact had been acting professionally for almost 9 years. And his older sister, Daphne Ashbrook, is probably known to a lot of people because she has been in everything, absolutely everything. She's 7 years older than he is, and he was discovered at one of her auditions by a talent scout. Daphne Ashbrook's one of her most famous and genre-appropriate roles is she was Dr. Grace Holloway in the 1996 Doctor Who television movie on Fox. But she has been in Knight Rider. She was in the OC. She's done everything. She works all the time. All the time. She is always working and always acting and doing things. So she's a very talented actor. Their father was very talented. And Dana Ashbrook himself is a very talented actor. His first on-screen role was 1978's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, where he was uncredited as Boy in the Boat. His first television role was on Cagney and Lacey. And not counting the pandemic lockdown, Dana Ashbrook, not saying it, Dana Ashbrook has never gone more than a year out of work since booking Twin Peaks. So he has been working all the time. In fact, I saw him in a television show 3 nights ago that was on ABC last year called High Potential. So he was a guest of the week. He was part of the ensemble of people who may or may not have committed murder. And the second he showed up on screen and went, "It's Bobby Briggs! That guy's guilty!" It turns out he was not guilty. But it just means that he is really good at his job. He looked like he could have been guilty in the way that the character was responding and acting and dealing with people. It turns out he was completely innocent and not a bad guy at all. And I have seen him in a lot of similar roles where he was not Bobby Briggs. But to talk about the piece of shit that Bobby Briggs is, we'll talk about his backstory and why he is in Twin Peaks. Because he is not a Twin Peaks native. The Briggs family, in fact, moved to Twin Peaks when Bobby was age 13. His father, Air Force Major Garland Briggs, was sent there on an investigative mission. What that mission is, we can't go into right now because it's classified. But a few years later, in junior high school, he started dating Shelley, whose last name was Macaulay at the time. It's Shelley Johnson now because she's married to Leo. We'll get to that in just a moment. But soon after he started dating Shelley, he also started dating Laura. This went on for a couple of years until they were juniors, and Shelley confronted him about cheating on her on prom night. There's a big public fight. Shelley took off, drank at the Roadhouse, met Leo, and 3 weeks later, they were married and she dropped out of high school. Bobby is the person responsible for introducing Laura to drugs. He got her marijuana. And she tried cocaine at a party, which was hosted by Leo fucking Johnson, I might add. All people. He started dealing drugs for Leo to pay for Laura's cocaine habit. And despite all this, Bobby and Shelley started seeing each other again in the spring of 1987, which is 2 years before Laura was murdered. Basically, they both suck. And even though they're presented as having a true love that lasts throughout the years. But to recap, so far in Twin Peaks, we've seen him deal drugs, steal drugs, and commit several felonious assaults. Bobby has lied to absolutely everyone he's spoken to since the series began. Everyone. I went back and checked. There's not a single conversation he has with anybody where he's not lying to them on something. He frequently drives drunk and is currently, as I mentioned earlier, currently conspiring to frame Leo for murder, the most probable outcome of which action will be Leo's death. In my opinion, despite his troubled home life and abusive father, he has absolutely no redeeming qualities in his waste of human skin. That having been said, Dana Ashbrook is amazing, portraying a tortured, bratty teen trapped in a small town he cannot escape. And that's something I know a lot about. And more than I'd like to. Critics really responded well to him. And like I mentioned at the top of the profile, he has been working nonstop since 1990 and Twin Peaks. So we'll find more horrible things that Bobby Briggs does as season 1 progresses, and certainly well into season 2. We'll see him again as Bobby in Fire Walk with Me and The Missing Pieces, because there are actually 2 separate movies there, and 7 episodes of the 2017 revival, where I was amazingly disappointed to see him. I won't lie. Seeing Bobby lived all the way to 2017 made me sad inside.
I assumed that in the intervening years he'd redeemed himself.
That is I won't go too deep into it. In fact, for characters who show up in The Return, we'll do other profiles of them again when they show up. But it's written as if he has completely turned his life around and has gotten great redemption. It's written about him that is the case. But when I watched The Return and I saw Bobby doing the things that Bobby was doing in The Return, I thought to myself, how can anyone in this room trust you? You tried to kill 3 of them. And I'm not talking metaphorically. He actually tried to kill 3 of the people in the room in the course of Twin Peaks. Light spoilers, indeed. There is not a lot of redemption for that. He needed to leave town, preferably by going to fucking prison, and stay out of town for a long time. There's just no reason to bring him back for that. And not to bring back, for example, Donna Hayward. Or, Dr. Jacoby. Or a number of people whom we actually liked in Twin Peaks. But we get to see 7 more episodes out of 17 of Bobby fucking Briggs. End of rant.
All
Not
right.
my favorite character. Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah. I I feel like he's kind of I think he's one of those he's a villain, but he's kind of an interesting villain because I feel because when you said that about the rage of being a teenager trapped in a small town, I feel that most of the time I just think Bobby's an asshole, but every once in a while I'm reminded he's literally a teenager. Um and you know, nothing in his life has treated him well so far. So every once in a while, I have a glimmer of sympathy for him.
It's
Uh,
it's a tragic backstory to be sure, but he's not helping himself, and no one's helping
no,
him. Right?
but he is
That's
also
the worst part about this is that there is nobody to help him. He can't trust his father. He can't trust his mother. He can't trust the cops. He has people in Leo and Jacques Renault who literally want to kill him over $5,000 fucking. That's ridiculous. He could sell his car in 1990 and make more money than he owes those guys.
yeah.
He could ask his father for the money, right? Who would bail him out? I mean, despite slapping the shit out of him, Garland Briggs loves his child. His mother certainly does. It shows on her face whenever we see her. Ah, wasted character. At least in episodes that David Lynch didn't write. Do you have any happier characters to talk about?
Um, oh yes, my character that I wanted to talk about is Dr. Jacoby.
Haha.
Because he's one of the characters where my perception of him has been very different this time around than it was when I watched this show new. Um, because Dr. Jacoby gives off very strong creep vibes, deliberately so. I think he's meant to be one of the people we suspect of perhaps having been involved in Laura's death. Um, and he's twitchy, he's quirky, he flips his tie, he flips the hula girl on his tie in a suggestive manner. Um, he gives off such creepy vibes, laughing inappropriately. And I think, the when I was watching this real time, the first time through, I just picked up on all the creep vibes and all that kind of thing. And weirdly, this time around, I find myself liking him more for just being one of those Lynchian weirdos. And also, I think I think he, well, for just being so honest, like I actually really like the bit at the end of Rest in Pain where um Cooper, sort of catches him, it's like, oh, you didn't come to the funeral, but he comes to the grave and he's like, um, I'm a terrible person, Agent Cooper. These people think of me as their friend. The truth is, I really don't care. And, I think I was too young, really, to understand the kind of middle-aged burnout that he's talking about. You know, um, I was just taking like, yes, you probably are a terrible person, and maybe you killed Laura. But I think, rewatching it now, I get where he's coming from a lot more. And when he talks about, I thought I could never care about anything again. Um, I thought nothing, no one could ever reach me again. Laura changed all that. I couldn't come today. I hope she understands. I hope she forgives me. And I hope she forgives me can, in this stage when we're still in the who killed Laura Palmer aspect of the story, that sounds kind of incriminating. But I think that it's everybody in town talks about their relationship with Laura because that is the premise of this, is that basically literally every single person in Twin Peaks, um, supposedly a town of 51,000 people, according to the sign. Um, According to one of the things I read, it was originally supposed to be like a town of 5,000 people, which sounds a lot more plausible given what we see. But at the last minute, an executive was like, 5,000 people? It's impossible to have a town that small. Um, and they changed it to 51,000 people. Really, a town of 51,000 people, I don't think there's any way you would only ever meet like, 24 of them. And Twin Peaks simply does not conduct itself like a town of 50,000 people.
There's a lot more people in that
50
sheriff's department than we've seen. A lot more.
Yeah, but I mean, 50,000 people would put it like more the size of Olympia, and it really feels more like the size of one of those little mountain towns. Um, and those are often around 5,000 people. But yes, even at 5,000 people, there have to be people in that sheriff's office we've never seen. But I think Jacoby also, he's very honest about Laura having helped him. And so at least so far, I am finding myself actually liking Dr. Jacoby much more than the first time through that I watched it. I just find myself like, oh, I see his point, and I appreciate his honesty. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess that's it.
Cool. Yeah, I like Jacoby a lot. He's I just know he's up to something, right? And in that the first time we meet him in the pilot, says, Laura was seeing me, but nobody knows. Don't tell anybody. It's like, you just confessed to something awful, didn't you? You know that guy has secret upon secret upon secret, and he basically confessed to sleeping with Laura, right? Which, as we know, she slept with a lot of guys on her cocaine-fueled rampages, so it's entirely possible, and in fact probable, that happened. And Jacoby, trying to be heartfelt and nice and cool about, I didn't want to show up at her funeral. I don't think anybody wants you there, dude. I don't think anybody likes you in this town. He's got client after client. He might be the only psychiatrist in a town of 50,000 people, which I find really hard to believe, given the number of doctors that they have. There are a lot of medical doctors in a fairly well-staffed trauma center in Twin Peaks, which, aren't in Snoqualmie. They aren't in Roslyn, all the places that they go, and they have big city ways in small towns. Those things aren't available in that part of Washington State. So there's got to be more to that town than we're seeing, and certainly more than the sawmill. Like, I think they said, 150 people work at the sawmill? Or something like that. It was a really big deal. Which the amount of lumber that they're moving through there isn't enough people either. And that lodge that they live at, that's a well-known resort hotel. Gotta be people working at that. And then there's the Great Northern. So the number of people in that town and the support people necessary for that keeps going up and up and up and up as we go through. It's got to be more than one psychiatrist. There has to be. But he's the one we keep running into. It's certainly like Albert's Wrath would probably be a lot more suited to a town of 5,000 people. I mean, that's a very
That's
valid
an interesting.
response.
So basically, that's one of the things that's one of the underlying oddities of Twin Peaks is this a 50,000 person town or a 5,000 person town? And in some ways, it's written as a 50,000 person town. In other ways, it's written as a 5,000 person town.
Yeah.
That's kind of that inconsistency is sort of throughout.
All right. I mentioned our two returning cast members for these episodes, which are David Lynch himself as Supervisory Special Agent SSA Gordon Cole, whom we only hear on the phone, but it is absolutely David Lynch. And Cheryl Lee returning as Maddie Ferguson instead of as Laura Palmer. That's where we are for now on that stage. So in our Lynchian tropes section, how far do you think it has diverged from the Lynchian norm? With two directors working against a David Lynch framework.
Actually, I think that David Lynch and Mark Frost working together, I think they set it up pretty solidly, so that even though we've already noticed that certain types of certain elements are kind of falling by the wayside. I feel like in terms of story themes, it's still very Lynchian, and because what I notice is that they still have not lost their focus on um, things that things where you would expect one and you get two, or things where you would expect two and you get one. So there's, Jack with one eye, the man with one arm, Mike and Bob versus Mike and Bobby, Madeline Ferguson, who just happens to look exactly like Laura Palmer. And I don't know if it has a specific symbolic meaning, but David Lynch, it's very much a David Lynch trope to, have doppelgangers and doubles, and also have a divided self where there should be another one there and there isn't. So I would say that kind of, and they never really do lose that, I would say. The doubles and doppelgangers and duplications and the truncations, the bifurcations, the thing. So I would say that's still very strong.
Yeah. Okay. The use of music continues all the way throughout, which I really like. There's, I don't know, the darkness and light aspects are really highlighted by characters like the Bookhouse Boys, which are entirely a Lynch creation. Just that sucks that they get introduced by other people going forward. And the yeah, I don't want to say that it's no longer David Lynch, because it's very much David Lynch, even though he's not in the room. Dave's right here with us in spirit. But and the next episode is written by Mark Frost, right? So we're back on track for that. I'm really happy about that fact that Mark Frost is back for that. But we'll see Harley Payton write a couple more. The final episode of the season, because remember it's a short first season, is Mark Frost directing and writing. And then when we get back to season 2, David Lynch back in the driver's seat. He's directing and writing for a good portion of the episodes. So I'll pick back up.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to our final thoughts. We're back for our final thoughts on episodes 4 and 5, Rest in Pain and The One Arm. I'll start. My final thought is the criminal element in Twin Peaks is far more extensive than we thought it was. And I'm kind of surprised that this was a late night soap opera with all of its wacky stuff going on, because there's a lot of heavy shit going down in Twin Peaks. We've already got rape and murder. We've got drug use now. We've got drug smuggling. We've got some attempted murders brewing. We've got infidelity. We have all this crazy ass shit going on in Twin Peaks. We're only halfway through the first season, and we're a long ways from the end of this journey of the original run through. So it'll be nice, I think, to take a break from the unrelenting darkness that is Twin Peaks and go towards the happy mayhem of Wild at Heart in a few episodes. But at the same time, I am so impressed by the Bookhouse boys and Sheriff Truman's ability to keep this hidden, right? Especially from someone like Dale Cooper, who comes in and just notices everything all the time. He noticed immediately Ed and Harry's relationships. He noticed Andy's relationship well before everything was going on. And he just sees these things. He sees patterns and puts things together as they go through. And they've been able to keep a lid on so much stuff in this town and not let the word get out, not only about what a cool place Twin Peaks is to live, but about the dark things about Twin Peaks. So I'm looking for more from the Bookhouse boys. I'm looking for more crimes, hopefully crimes that can be solved, instead of the never-ending murder of Laura Palmer. I'm certainly looking forward to Benjamin Horne's crimes being exposed, which brings us to the final bit of my thoughts. Hank Jennings. Hank Jennings, who got parole for manslaughter. And it's revealed in discussions that Norma has with both Hank's lawyer and has had with Ed, that Hank Jennings is in jail for beating the shit out of somebody to the point where they died because he was making eyes at Norma. He shouldn't be getting out of jail, but he is. He's getting out for manslaughter because it was an accident that this guy died after, he got beat up by Hank. And I kind of was thinking that there was more going on with his manslaughter charge before. Certainly with the things that are coming to light now, in that he's had a previous relationship of some sort, not an affair, but of some sort, with Josie Packard, who is revealed to be a criminal as well. Even though she's trying to save the mill and to get all these other things going on, out of nowhere, we've got a couple characters who we didn't think were bad that are bad, really bad. And it's bothering me in a good way. I like to go to dark places. I've mentioned this before. And we're definitely going to a whole new level of dark place now that the soft, white, fishy criminal underbelly of Twin Peaks is coming to light. Anything more for you?
I have a final thought. I want to read the intro to the Bookhouse Boys, which is the Sheriff Harry Truman.
Yeah.
This is what he says to explain the Bookhouse Boys. Twin Peaks is different, a long way from the world. You've noticed that, and that's exactly the way we like it. But there's a back end to that that's kind of different too. Maybe that's the price we pay for all the good things. There's a sort of evil out there, something very, very strange in these old woods. Call it what you want, a darkness, a presence. It takes many forms, but it's been out there for as long as anyone can remember. And we've always been here to fight it. Men before us, Men Before Them, more After We're Gone. Um, that jumped out at me as being so incredibly Stephen King. And then to have it followed up immediately by the fact that they're beating the shit out of a guy who speaks with a very French Canadian accent, which would be very typical of Maine, where
Mhm.
Stephen King sets everything, but not so typical of the Pacific Northwest, honestly. So, and it's interesting because I don't actually remember a lot of reviews or critical response pointing out the Stephen King nature of Twin Peaks, but a lot of the aspects of it are jumping out at me now
Well,
on this rewatch.
has The Stand aired at this point?
Um,
I know it was out.
you know, I'm not sure.
Let me look it up with my keyboard. 1994 was The Stand. All right.
Okay.
Maximum Overdrive was 1986. We all know how that ended. And badly. Stephen King took a lot of cocaine. A lot of cocaine. And he is sober. He's been sober a long time. But
Laura Palmer levels of cocaine, one might say.
Laura Palmer levels of cocaine. Yeah. All right. So it was 1990. And so let's see what part of 1990 it was. It was later this year. So it
Ooh.
was November 18th and 20th of 1990. So it hit just as Twin Peaks Season 2 was gathering steam. So I don't think that's a bad connection and analogy. It was the sort of thing that ABC liked, right? It meant that they were filming it. They were filming it while they were filming Twin Peaks Season 1. And they were into that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful comparison. And you're right. It feels like Derry. You could put this in Derry and no one would notice. Right? In fact, I believe Dale Cooper has been to Derry. He was probably hunting Pennywise at some point. Probably what really happened to David Bowie. Who knows? Even though we do know what happened to David Bowie. It's a sad, sad story. But we'll get into that in a couple of years of sidereal time when we get to Twin Peaks Firewalk. Yeah, no, it's a connection I hadn't really made until you brought it up earlier today. And I think you driving it home with that Bookhouse Boys intro is it's something to look out for, right? Because now we got to look for King tropes in addition to Lynchian tropes. I'd rather just focus on Lynchian tropes, but we see some fucked up Stephen King shit. We should talk about it, given that we know we know, especially after it airs, right? Because the studio, ABC Studios and ABC Television really, really started fucking with Frost and Lynch during season 2 to make changes and change a lot of stuff about Twin Peaks because they weren't happy with the way things were going. Or rather, they thought that it should go a certain way, and then it didn't end up going that way, even though they never told them it would go that way. They said, maybe we should do these things, do these things, and do these things, to the point where David Lynch didn't want to do television anymore, much like he didn't want to work for big studios making films. And since we're talking about Dave Lynch, we need to talk about his general dissatisfaction with people fucking with his artistic vision. And especially when he has the producer's credit on something. He doesn't take kindly to that. I believe when we get into episodes 6 and 7, which are called Cooper's Dreams, written by Mark Frost, and Realization Time, written by Harley Peyton, who wrote Rest in Pain for us this time out. Until then, I have been your host, Scott James Bagner, the idiot with the microphone. My partner in crime.
And I'm Julie McGalliard. Look for me, Goth House Press.
Bookhouse Press. Indeed, you can find me at scotchjamesbagger.com, here on YouTube, where I am the idiot with a microphone. Like, I'll probably have to change my thing here. I changed myself over to idiot with a microphone almost full time on YouTube, although SJ Magner is where you can find me just about everywhere else. And you can also find me at my small press website, rsentertainment.com, which I'll talk to right now. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of So Here's the Deal, an RS Entertainment webcast. RS Entertainment is a progressive publisher that focuses on independent authors and the stories that they tell. If you visit our website, rsentertainment.com, you can buy some books written by myself, Scott James Magner, the idiot with a microphone, and a variety of other authors. We have space opera, science fiction, fantasy, dark fantasy, even books of horror poetry. You can even get a free book written by myself, Homefront, my 2014 science fiction novel. Just fill out the form, order the ebook of Homefront, and it's yours for free. You can also find our books at all retail outlets, libraries, and online at your favorite bookseller. Just make sure that RS Entertainment, search for rsentertainment.com, and the book should be there. And if they're not, hey, ask them. They can order right up. It's not a problem at all. Again, thank you for watching our channel. I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.